You are listening to Waywut, hosted by Darrell Holiday and Jason Driggers. This is a podcast with a couple of guys wandering down various rabbit holes involving true crime, science, history, paranormal, whatever else we find interesting. You can listen on whichever your preferred podcast platform is, and feel free to email us at waywutpodcast@gmail.com. That is WAYWUT podcast@gmail.com. And with that, let's start the show. Welcome to the very first episode of Waywut. This is a new podcast. This is the first episode of this podcast where me, Darrell, and my best friend Jason
Hello.
we will essentially take turns, episode by episode, discussing various things, rabbit holes that we find interesting in hopes of just, it being something that one of us doesn't know, because what's fun in telling somebody about something they already know, as well as maybe our audience don't know. And if they do know about it, maybe we'll tell you something about it you don't know. Or you end up getting to hear a couple of middle-aged hicks talk
Dorks.
about something. Yeah, or dorks. Whatever. Talk about something that you knew about, but you will maybe be entertaining. So, with that being said, I will be taking the reins on episode 1. And my best friend, co-host, and mayonnaise connoisseur,
no,
Jason.
Not connoisseur. No. Severe hatred for.
Mayonnaise connoisseur will be there to hopefully ask the questions that you guys might think of if, while hearing this. And then I will say, if you don't like any of the questions that Jason asks while I'm going, feel free to comment or email and talk shit about them. Nobody cares. Oh, speaking of shit, it should be noted this is not a family podcast. I will try to keep the F-bombs in check, but I do have
I make no such promises.
You should. Try to contain yourself. My grandma might listen to this.
Okay. I will try.
So, all the people that are related to us that are probably going to listen to this first, thank you. So.
All right, so I got one question before we even start. How do you want me to ask the questions? You want me to wait till the end?
No,
or do you want me to interrupt like we're doing? All right, that's what I will do.
We are having a conversation, damn it. This is not a lecture.
All right, let's do it. I'm ready to listen.
I guess that is something else we should also have a disclaimer at the very beginning. We are not educators. Do not reference us in your research papers, kids.
We have no idea what we're talking about.
We're terrible resources. Terrible.
Yes, I'm citing no sources here.
So, before we really dive into this, how are your shoulders?
My shoulders are good. I could lift my right arm completely over my head, and I could do the same with my left with little to no pain. But I'm still can't do a push-up yet. I'm working on that.
For those of you who are not in the know, which might be my family, I'm sure Jason's family almost about this, but he's had both rotator cuffs surgified.
Labrum, but still shoulder. Whatever. It's shoulder all the same. Surgery. It's the shoulder, yeah.
You had stuff done.
Oh yeah, it was all kinds of stuff wrong, but we're on the road to recovery.
Well, I would like to thank you for not bombarding me with pictures of your stitches and bruising and stuff.
Well, I have them.
I know, but you did not send them to me.
Oh no, no.
No, yeah. See, I'm kind of. This is my little. I'm going to start things off with a bit of a wussy guy rant because I hate pain, and it's not just my pain, but it's like anybody's pain, And
you got a soft heart.
No, well, yeah, but I mean, it's weird. I'm like an empath or something. So like, if you got those people that like mangle their finger in a Snoopy snow cone maker, and they just splatter their injury all over Facebook, saying, "Look, you can see the bone. Don't do that. That's terrible. It's not that it's gross. I mean, it's gross, but I feel it. Like if somebody talks about slicing their thumb open, the first thing I do is grab my thumb. Somebody talks about getting their tooth knocked out, I'm like making sure that my tooth is still there. Um, I'm just I'm broken that way. And when I was a kid, I was watching the cartoon at my Aunt Rita's house. It was Teen Wolf, the cartoon, 80s. Uh, and a cow licked a dude's face. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm like 8
A
years old.
cow?
A cow. A cow licked a guy's face. He was in the back of a farm truck. Cow licked his face, and I go like that, and I wipe my face. And my aunt starts laughing. She's like, "Darrell, did you just wipe your face?" And I'm like, "Yeah." It was because I felt it. It felt like somebody licked my face. So just again, thank you for not making me look at your gross, nasty ass shoulders.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. So speaking of surgery, uh, I was kind of wondering about anesthesia.
Okay.
I mean, not necessarily the how it works or anything like that, because it knocks you out. But how did somebody figure out that it works? I
That's
mean,
a good question. Yeah.
yes. I mean, was there a mad scientist that was just like, hey, come here, I want to try to cut out one of your organs, see how much of this you need to go to sleep,
If
or
the
if there's
patient's
some.
asleep, yeah, they get something they could give their
But I
feedback.
mean,
Like, this is too heavy of a
there's something.
medicine. Right.
Yeah, but they'd OD and die or something. Or was there like crazy ass patients that are just like, I'm in so much pain, just use whatever every chemicals you got on me and see if anything will knock me the hell out.
Like with most inventions, it was probably done by accident. They're probably trying for euthanasia or to kill somebody,
No,
and they realized they were still awake,
no,
but not
no.
dead.
It was none of those things. Uh, so way back in the old days, pre-anesthesia days, you had two options. You either did nothing and you died, or you do something and maybe make it if you're lucky,
And maybe die.
or maybe die. Uh, and so doctors, that was their thing. They'd just sit there and be like, "Hey, do you want me to do something? I'm going to have to probably cut something off,
Yep.
uh,
About the
or
stick.
do nothing." So the people that actually led the charge on this was a dentist. It was a dentist by the name of Horace Wells. It's a very dentist name, Horace Wells. So whenever he was a dentist, it wasn't like, I mean, there were some fillings and things like that, but for the most part, it was like, "Oh, you got a toothache? I'll make it stop hurting," and they just yank the shit right out of your
Yeah,
head
they usually put cocaine on it.
or something along those lines. But that really didn't do the trick. And for the most part, the way everybody was about that is like, "Hey, we're supposed to hurt. It's God's plan, and if He wants us to survive,
No.
He'll make it just go away." So the options that they had, whenever it's like they were going to yank a tooth out of somebody's head, was you give them booze,
Yep.
or and or do
The old mallet across
whatever
the head.
you do. No, you do whatever it is as fast as you can. It's like if you got to keep tugging on a tooth, pretty soon somebody's going to kick you in the
Pass it.
balls or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So back to Horace, the dentist Horace Wells. He goes to a grand exhibition. There we go, grand exhibition. And back, in those olden days, or like late 1800s, it, the fascinated people were easily fascinated, and they're looking for ways to be entertained.
Yes.
And what's one of the best ways to get entertained back then? Get high. And so this exhibition,
It hasn't
they
gone
were
out of style, by the way.
But they don't have like it isn't like they have like hey, we're gonna throw up a tent in the Walmart
Right.
parking lot
Yeah, the opium
to
den
show
in it. Yeah.
everybody. like in this case, nitrous oxide. They had
Okay.
nitrous oxide, and so what they would do is they would, the people would essentially get in line, go huff some of it, and catch a buzz.
Huh.
And so, yeah, they would advertise in the newspaper like, "Hey, come
Come
over
catch a
here
bus.
to
Yeah.
this tent, and we're going to show you something that's going to get you high." So Horace shows up to this, and he notices that people are like huffing this stuff. They're catching a buzz, but then they're like falling down, stumbling, and stuff like that. But they're not hurting.
Huh.
They're kind of getting up like nothing happened. And he's like, "Huh, hmm." So he gets starts working with this guy with the last name of Riggs. I can't remember his first name. And they stay up all night and they're sitting there talking all night about like what they could do. And so Wells decides he wants to get a tooth yanked out of his head by Riggs while he's huffing the laughing gas, the nitrous oxide. So they get a couple, a bunch of other guys they know, and a guy to supply them the goofy gas, and they're all getting together like, okay, maybe we'll get to see a beautiful scientific advancement, or we'll get to watch our friend scream like a little bitch. One or the
Win
other.
win. Win
Yeah, I
win.
mean, either way, they're coming out of it okay. So Wells sucks on a bag of nitrous, and once he thinks he's high enough, he just like opens his mouth up, and Riggs starts digging in there using all he's got, and yanks this nasty wisdom tooth right out of his head. And Wells is like, "Ha! It didn't hurt at all."
Huh. Kind of like the first, hey, hold my beer, watch this type of
Well,
thing.
he was even. It is said that he was like, "A new era of tooth pulling has begun," which I'm pretty sure that's what he thought he was saying, but I'm pretty sure it was probably "A new era has begun," something along those lines. Now, unfortunately for Horace, everything kind of goes a little south for him. So he blows all his money on nitrous. And one of the best ways to advertise, of course, is word of mouth. But not everybody's lining up to let you
Get
yank
their
your
tooth
teeth.
yanked out. Yeah.
Yeah, especially like, hey, here, suck on this bag for a
Yeah.
little bit. And so he was doing it for free. I mean, and some of it was the fact that he just loved the fact that he could finally do his job without making people hurt really really bad. Uh, so he gets out in front of Harvard, where one of his former students that one of Horace's former students, a guy named William Morton, is now a med student. He does a demonstration in front of all of the Harvard hoi polloi. Uh, and whenever they go to pull the dude's tooth, he starts screaming like a bitch. Now, after the fact, the guy that they were going to yank his tooth out of said it really didn't hurt. He just got freaked out. Uh, and Horace is like, well, that means I didn't give him enough gas, but the damage was done. Everybody's like, all right, Horace, you're full of shit. Nobody cares about your goofy gas. You try to use it in front of the smart people, and you made a guy cry, and so now nobody likes you. So Horace starts bouncing around all over the place, just trying to get anyone to hop on his nitrous train.
Where is he
Whenever
starting this at? Where is this
he
taking
was
it?
up in New York
Okay.
initially, and then he was in Boston for the Harvard thing, and
Since then,
then
okay, that's where the
yeah,
population is at this
yeah,
time. Okay.
yeah, all dense stuff. So he starts hopping around a lot more than just the Northeast there for a little bit. Whenever that ex student his that was at Harvard
Mhm.
pops back in, and he is the one that is more remembered as a father of anesthesia, because he was like, that nitrous shit ain't nothing. check out this ether shit.
Oh,
Yeah, he comes in with the
multiplied it. Yeah.
hardcore stuff. So everyone starts paying attention to him and loving the fact that he's got this thing that doesn't just make you goofy; knocks your ass out. Horace, of course, and rightfully so, I guess, is like, hey, he wasn't the one that was like leading the charge on this. I was the pioneer. Uh, and he was kind of like, that ether stuff's a little dangerous. It knocks you out, but it might kill you. Nitrous is better. So Horace runs off to Europe. And while he's there, he starts learning about ether and chloroform, and he shows people in Paris his nitrous things, and the French love him so much. I mean, these guys love him so much that they actually have him marked down in their little history books or medical stuff as the the discoverer of anesthesia. They didn't fall into the William Morton trap. So as far as they're concerned, he's the first guy to ever use vapors and gases for surgical operations to perform without pain. Um, Eventually, and this is more in recent years, the American Dental Association and American Medical Association also decided to give Horace credit for it. Unfortunately for Horace, he didn't get to find out about any of that stuff. So,
Is
do
it
you
because
remember?
he's dead?
Do you remember how he learned if nitrous was a good gas? Where he had it, where he was trying it on himself,
Yeah.
the friend yanked a tooth out of his head. Uh, so he was trying to do the same thing with chloroform, but chloroform is addictive,
Really?
and yeah, and apparently it makes him an asshole too. Whatever, because while he got high, he decided to throw some sulfuric acid on a couple of ladies that pissed him off.
Oh, that's
Uh
not
huh.
very nice.
Yeah, and then like once he came down and he wasn't high no more, he felt really really bad about it. Um, and so
Well,
on
here's a
his way to
question.
what?
All the access to these chemicals is how easily available it has been.
Well,
That's
back he
that's
was a
kind of.
doctor.
I mean, you have just access to sulfuric acid
He
that you can
did.
throw on people.
He did. He was experimenting with stuff. Dude was a scientist. Apparently, a bit of a
um,
mad scientist.
yeah, it's just I don't know. Okay,
All right,
continue, sir.
so the cops arrest him, and he's coming down, and he's acting normal, and he's like, "Can you just take me back to my place so I can get my stuff before I go to jail?" And they're like, "Okay, you seem like a nice enough guy. I mean, you only threw sulfuric acid on a couple of ladies." And so he goes up to his room, he gets some chloroform, gets high again, then uses a razor to cut his femoral artery in his leg.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's a bit of a bummer ending for him. I mean,
yeah.
it kind of,
At least he knew which artery to cut.
yeah. So, I mean, now a bit off on the side. Take a guess how old he was.
Hmm. I'm gonna guess in the '60s.
33.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
going to take a moment to make this about me for a minute. Just give me a second.
All right.
How in the hell does someone have a rise and fall and fight for their place in history and commit crimes all by 33?
Right.
I mean, I'm 43, and we're just now starting this podcast.
Yeah, our life is just starting.
So, I mean, I guess he did
It's
that whole
different
like live
times.
fast, die young shit.
Well, the
It's
'30s
just,
back then is like the '70s for today.
well, I'll be getting to an older gentleman here in a bit because
Okay.
the story is not over just because Horace is down. Because, um, well, I want to feel
Is
a
this
little bit
what the
better about
doctor?
myself.
Is
We're
this what the
gonna
doctor on a Little Shop of Horrors was based off of? The dentist.
no, Dear God, no. He wasn't that kind. He wasn't. No, because Horace wasn't a sadist. The guy,
True. No,
yeah,
but he was addicted to
he was
laughing
addicted
gas,
to laughing gas,
and it
nitrous
was
oxide.
great. It was pretty damn funny.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite slot machine. So let's move on to something.
Sorry, that's all I could think about
No,
now.
no,
So
it's
guy from
okay.
Little Shop of Horrors.
No, because I mean, I want to go to a bit of a horrific route. So this is actually a good transition because this whole episode is not about anesthesia. It's about it's more medical horror stories.
All right.
So we're going to talk about a fellow by the name of Doctor Liston. So take Horace, and once you take out Horace's, throwing acid on two ladies, he seemed like a good dude. Before the
He tried to take
chloroform,
people's pain away. Right.
yeah, before the chloroform, 33 years old, and he's trying to change the world. It was difficult for him. But there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Robert Liston, who was a British doctor, but not your normal British doctor. Imagine Dion Sanders, but as a 19th century British surgeon.
Deion Sanders, as in
Yeah,
primetime Deion Sanders.
yes, because he was a showboater. He was a show off.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean, he was ahead of his time. I mean, like he washed his hands.
Oh.
Yeah, he
He
washed
wore
his
gloves.
instruments. He washed his tools. He washed his knives up. I mean, this was a big deal. They didn't do that
Right.
shit. Uh, he even shaved the surgical areas.
Okay.
I mean, and this is, like I said, 19th century surgeon here. So the thing that, he wasn't Deion Sanders and famous because he was hygienic, because back then, a lot of doctors didn't even wash their aprons because all the blood on it made them look like a boss. Like, look how much shit I do, bitch. I
Yeah.
got
Do you
like
wash
4 gallons
mash?
of
Yeah.
blood on me. I mean, it's just a different era.
Yeah. You
But
don't look
his
like you've been
big,
at work. Yeah.
but back to the Deion Sanders comparison, uh, Dr. Liston was fast. So prior to
A
that,
fast and a surgeon. Do you really want those two together?
uh, well, remember, before Horace had his
Oh, there's no
nitrous and
pain
Morton had his
medicine.
ether,
Right.
the best way to keep somebody from hurting was being fast. So the quicker you could do a
Take somebody's
surgery,
tonsils out. Yeah.
yeah. So his big claim to fame was that he could chop a leg off in 2.5 minutes.
Oh,
I mean, that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty
that's
good because they didn't have electric saws. I mean, that's
that's a long 2.5 minutes though.
yeah,
I mean that may be quick, but that is a long, torturous
two
two
and a
and a
half
half
minutes.
minutes.
But for others, it take them like 8. Like this
Oh,
dude was fast, and
like
it made
lumberjack
him
fast.
a show off. So like right before he'd start a surgery, he would shout, "Time me, gentlemen, time me." He liked being clocked.
Now, is he
He
really
loved
truly
having an audience.
is a surgeon somebody that just cuts limbs off at this point?
I
Or
mean,
is
that
that
was
not what
like
he's
the.
doing?
I
The main
mean, that was what
surgery.
he was good at. But I mean,
You have
that
a
was what a
hangnail. We're going
surgeon
to cut
did.
your foot
Yeah,
off.
yeah. I mean, and he loved having an audience. So I mean, he had this operation theater. He loved the attention,
All
but
right.
sometimes he was a bit too fast. So there was one amputation where he accidentally castrated a patient.
How do you accidentally castrate somebody? They don't have two sets of balls.
Well, all right. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna spoil one other thing. This guy is still held in very high regard, Doctor Liston.
This
He's still
castration
he's
guy.
looked yeah he is looked at as like pretty awesome because he did some very important things historically. But those aren't near as fun to talk about. So we're gonna talk about him chopping off somebody's junk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's much more fun to talk about.
So essentially, what he was doing is he had the really extra sharp knives. He was very proud of how sharp his knives were, and he
Dexter
was
of his
just
time.
and he was going. he was cutting high up on a guy's thigh, and the guy's sitting there wiggling and shit because he's hurting.
He's getting his leg cut off.
Yeah, but it just went. It was essentially a slip of a hand, and then
Oh,
denutted.
oh
He's
man.
yeah,
Instead
permanently
of
high
slicing
pitched
your
voice.
thumb, yeah.
Yeah, so it cut off the dude's leg and his balls. You would think it doesn't get worse than that, but it actually does. So Liston was very proud of his 90% survival rate. So 90% of the people that he would chop on would live, which
What
is
about
was
the
like
ball guy?
really good. But I don't know. I think the balls guy lived. It didn't really say. I think it's one of those things where everybody just accepts the fact that maybe he just wanted to die after that. So who knows?
Huh?
But with like I said, this guy bragged that 90% of the people live. He at one point had a 300% mortality rate in one surgery.
What? He killed a guy 3 times?
He killed 3 people in one surgery.
Man, that's efficient.
Okay, so remember how he's got his fast, sharp knives, right?
Yes.
All right, so he's sitting there working, cutting off this dude's leg, and of course, the guy's wiggling around, and he's got assistants. Well, while the struggle's happening, he sliced off his assistant's fingers that were holding. So just chopped his fingers off. So this was a bit of a shock for a lot of people.
This is a great movie scene. I'm playing it now in my head.
Yeah. And so once Dr. Liston realized, holy shit, I just accidentally chopped off some extra body parts off the wrong person,
Again.
he whipped his knife back to, pull it back.
Mhm.
And while doing that, it cut away through an observer that was nearby, cut through their coattail. So Mr. Coattail dropped dead right then and there. Just fell the fuck over dead. He didn't get cut. He dropped dead from a heart attack
Oh
because
my
he
god.
thought he got cut.
Oh, this is great.
The patient and the assistant. So they both had amputations. One of them planned, one of them unplanned. Both died from gangrene a couple days later.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's like, when he goes into surgery, the worst thing that could happen is like the patient could die. But he's like, no, it could be so much worse.
That is one hell of a story.
All right. So, but I mean, we did the 1800s, then we did early 1900s. Let's go into a bit of a modern era.
All right.
So, back in the 1800s, we had everybody getting all crazy about gas and ethers being like the big turn for modern medicine. Do you know what it was in like the 50s and the 40s?
LSD.
Radioactivity.
Okay.
That was whatever everybody got all about, like radioactive this and radioactive that, because it was going to solve
Fallout
everything.
shelters. Yep.
Well, they thought it was going to cure stuff.
Okay.
So we got Albert Stevens. It's a 58-year-old male having severe stomach issues, and it's suspected to be an ulcer. But his doctor didn't really have the equipment to make sure of it, so they send him off to the University of California, San Francisco to get x-rayed and checked out. So he hauls his ass over there. After looking at the x-rays, they go to him and they're like, yep, you got stomach cancer and probably about 6 months left to live. So he's
Not
like,
the way he planned that visit.
no, definitely not the way he played it. So he's given a short time limit, and somebody in the hospital staff approaches him and says, hey, would you like to, you got 6 months, you want to give a go at this radioactive phosphate? It's experimental, but what do you got to lose? This is not anything that happens today. You're dying and not responding to treatment, then the FDA might give you the right to try something. But it was not one of those things where, you know, you just get to hop into your room and be like, "Hey, buddy, want to try this? Want to try this glowing green pill?" Uh, but I mean, yeah. So like nowadays, if there's something experimental, it's being heavily researched, it's documented, and all this other stuff. Back then, there's just dudes like, "Hey, want to try this?" Um, so this is like 1945. We're still in World War II, and the Manhattan Project is sitting there just trucking along. They're working their butts off, making this atomic bomb and dealing with loads of uranium and all the potential dangers that come with that.
Making the movie Oppenheimer,
Yeah,
all the things that
pretty
come
much.
along with it.
The U.S. discovers plutonium, and they give it over to Oppenheimer and the rest of his little Manhattan Project team, and they of course use it to make a bomb. But they got this new shiny thing, and they want to know what they can do with it. They're like, "Oh, this plutonium stuff. Can I use it to generate 1.21 gigawatts to like
I think that
travel
might
through
be
time?"
copyrighted.
So the U.S. has all these big brains in this one spot, and they figure might as well create a top secret project to see what plutonium can do to and for people. You want to give and take.
Of course.
So they would find these people that are dying and offer up radioactive phosphate that in reality was straight up fucking plutonium.
Wow. So you telling me they glowed?
Pretty much. And Albert, stomach guy, just happened to be their very first California candidate. They eject him with an incredibly high dose. I don't understand any of the numbers. I saw all these graphs and shit, but apparently it's really high. And after a couple months, they open them up to see what kind of stuff's going on in there. And as far as he's concerned, it's to remove
Stomach
cancer or
cancer.
whatever. I mean, but after the fact, it was actually documented as a non-therapeutic surgery. They open them up and they look around and they find this huge ulcer along one of his ribs. They didn't find any goddamn cancer. Zero cancer. He never had cancer. They
Uh,
just sit there and looked at the X-ray. And was like, "Oh, he got cancer." No, he had a big ass ulcer. He wasn't dying. He did not have 6 months to live. So now what? They messed up and they dosed a not dying guy
he
with a
starts his
shit
own superhero movies.
with a buttload of plutonium.
Mhm.
So how do you think they would handle this?
How do I think they would handle him consuming so much plutonium?
No, how do you think they would handle the whole thing about him not having cancer and having an ulcer, and they filled him full of plutonium?
Hmm. A good apology.
Wrong. That is not what happened. They said,
An
"Wow,
oopsie.
you made a remarkable recovery.
Ah, they doubled down.
Congratulations, you are cancer free."
It
That
worked.
technically wasn't alive.
You're welcome.
Of course, he's happy. He's like, "Hey, I don't have cancer." He's like, "Yeah, I get to go back home." And they're like, no, 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 no. We need to watch you for a little while.
Yeah,
They just wanted to study him.
why is your pee glow in the dark? That
Yeah,
type of stuff.
he's like, "I feel fine. I want to go home. Let me go home." And they kind of meet in the middle. They're like, "You can go home, but only if you give us all your poop and pee."
Hmm. Equal. Fair trade.
And they would pay him for it. Uh, he would sit there and keep all his shit and piss in a shed that
In the shed.
in a shed that some unfortunate nurse would have to go and collect every now and then. Have to make this fucking drive out in the country to go get this
Oh, the poop
old
shed.
guy's
Yeah.
poop out of his shed. And so, all right, he got that done in 1945, and then they figured it out like a handful of months later. He lived until 1966,
Oh,
and he died from a heart attack. That was, I mean, the only thing they found that
non-plutonium related.
the only thing they found that the plutonium did to him was it degraded his lumbar stuff, his back bones, because that's what plutonium does. It goes straight for the bones. It just all the radiation goes through there and just degrades them. Uh, but he had no tumors, none, zero tumors. His annual amount of radiation was 60 times more than what government employees are allowed to be exposed to.
Holy
So
crap! So he's
people that
buried
work
with
in
nuclear waste.
people that work around nuclear waste, he was exposed to 60 times that amount. Uh,
So how'd they bury him?
uh, Probably
They
like
buried
normal.
with nuclear waste.
He's not like Mary Curie. He doesn't. I don't think he ended up in the lead line coffin. At least I didn't see that. I mean, what's funny is all this eventually came out that, like years later, some investigative reporter just started digging around and ended up finding this experiment. There were like 18 people in total, and some of them were children that were all part of this experiment. And I'm pretty sure most of them died. I wasn't going to read the entire book on this. I'm sorry. I don't care that much. This is a fun podcast, but it's not. I'm not going to spend that much time on this.
I love your dedication.
Yeah. Well, not that. I'm not going to read an entire book. I'll read
No,
like
don't
a
be silly.
Wikipedia articles and then a few other articles. Like I usually, whenever I have a research thing going now, I've got like about 12 tabs open that are dedicated to research on my browser. But I'm not going to, I'm not going to do anything that's going to interfere with my life. Get in the way of TV watching.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that does it for my medical horror stories.
I loved it.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Uh,
It's okay. You got nothing. It's fine. We're just doing this thing where we have to record ourselves talking. All right. So, but this being our first episode, everyone, we'd appreciate whatever feedback you got. And if you want to call us dorks or something stupid in the reviews, please do so. I don't care. At least I say I don't now.
just spell my name
As
right,
soon as I
please.
see a bad review, I'll probably cry. But that's if somebody reviews us. That'll be the worst thing. Say we get ignored.
I mean, somebody watched it though, or listened to it.
No, I mean if we get like zero listens. So yeah. With that being said, next time your doctor keeps you waiting for 45 minutes after your appointment time, just remember, it could be worse. Yeah. So please join us next time whenever Jason will bring us a tale or two that will hopefully make you say, "Wait, what?" Thank you for listening to Wait, What? Please feel free to like and or review us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also email us at waywutpodcast@gmail.com. That is WAYWUT podcast@gmail.com. Join us next time and we will do our best to make you say, "Wait, what?"